Plus de 3 experts nationaux et internationaux se sont succédés au congrès américain le jeudi 9 novembre 2017 pour l'emmener à agir au sujet de la RDC, exigeant le départ de Kabila, une transition et des élections sans lui, appelant à des sanctions ciblées qui le viseraient personnellement, son entourage le plus proche ainsi que les membres de sa famille. Parmi les intervenants, Mvwemba Dizolele, analyste politique international. Son intervention se résume à ceci.
I want to speak as a human being talks to other human beings. In other words, what I want to say that Kabila must go. The responsibility for the suffering of the Congolese people rests with one man, Joseph Kabila, which he shares with a small and shrinking cadre of associate and family members. Over the last 16 years, this group has captured the state with total impunity at the expense of the people. A series of reports, including those from the Carter Center, the Panama Papers, the Lumumba Papers, the Paradise Papers, Bloomberg News, and the Congo Research Group, have documented and exposed the wide extent to which DRC's natural and financial resources, estimated in billions of dollars, have been diverted to benefit this small group. The Kabila regime has been characterized by 3 things: looting, plunder, and deadly violence. We have tolerated this for too long. It is time for a new leadership. Again, Kabila must go. When we confront Kabila and his associates about this abysmal record, they typically blame everyone and everything, from the weather, the political opposition, Rwanda, Uganda, Angola, the youths, the United States, and the militias. Everybody except themselves. Nobody ever takes responsibility for actions in DRC, and the government definitely never fire anyone, and nobody ever resigns. So even by the standards of Central Africa's dysfunctional states, the Kinshasa regime stands alone in its mediocrity. Unlike his peers in the region, Kabila has no political base and is so unpopular that he cannot face his fellow citizens and explain why he should stay in power. Every time he has made an attempt to stay longer, he has faced stiff resistance from the population. So his government has decided to simply not fund and organize the elections. His action has only emboldened the Congolese to demand that he leaves office. So I believe that we should not be, as the government seems to propose today, blissfully naive about the decision that we will be holding the election next year by December. A record stands for itself. It's been 16 years. I don't have to go further into this. But I just want to say that internally, Kabila has no good options. He's tried everything: subvert the constitution, kill protesters, jail everyone. The international community has helped him. He has failed. The only option that he has is to rely on military force and bloody repression. We've already seen too much of that. So at this point, in fact, the Congolese see him as an illegal, illegitimate, and unconstitutional president, which he is. They are already referring to him as the former president. So should we. Outside DRC, Kabila and his associates are spending lots of money to launder his image and fend off the pressure. They've hired mere security and communication systems, an Israeli firm to represent the interests in Washington, D.C. for nearly $6 million. This is in a country where civil servants, nurses, and doctors are on strike because they're not being paid. Nurses and doctors, yet the government is spending over $6 million in lobbying effort. Kabila must go. The longer he stays in office, the greater the risk for violence and instability. For my recommendation, this body and the government of the United States should impose sanctions on Kabila and his family and his inner circle. We've been imposing sanctions on people who are totally irrelevant, generals, minister of information. That isn't going to work. Kabila is the obstacle. He should be held accountable. We've spoken to Kabila for a long time at the highest level of this government of the United States. President Obama, Secretary Kerry, Secretary Clinton, Senator Russ Feingold, Tom Perriello, they've all engaged Kabila in the nicest of way that most tin pot dictators would have wished for, and he's not adjusted. We should impose sanctions on Corneille Nangaa, the head of the Independent National Electoral Commission. His delaying tactics fuel the tensions and pose even a greater risk for stability. Many of you have met Corneille Nangaa. He's really convinced in his own bubble that what he's saying makes sense, but all of us know that what he says most of the time is incoherent and nonsensical. In fact, Corneille Nangaa has retained a lobby firm, Reset Public Assets, LLC, to represent him in Washington, D.C., for a monthly fee of $30,500 to represent him ahead of an electoral commission. The Madison Group, LLC, represents the Independent National Election Commission for a fee of $25,000. This is a red flag. The message here is that the Electoral Commission and its president care more about the what the US government thinks or does, while showing utter contempt for the Congolese opinion. While they almost never meet the Congolese opposition to update them on the electoral process, they're spending millions of taxpayer dollars, both in the US and in Congo, on frequent travels and on expensive lobbying efforts in Washington, D.C. This, again, is unacceptable. Corneille Nangaa should be held accountable. He should be put on a sanction list.
Fred Bauma de la Lucha.
On Monday, October 30th, Jonathan Kasigwa, Gustave Kambale, Jean-Louis Kikandi, and Remy Mulwana, and Obed Mumbere, all under 20 years old of age, were shot by Congolese National Police and the military police while demonstrating peacefully in Goma. Those demonstrations were called by the civil society coalition, including movement Lucha. The aim of these demonstrations was to call President Kabila to resign as a consequence for his failure to organize the election and to respect the timelines in our constitution. It should concern the United States that this violent crackdown on peaceful protesters took place so blatantly within a week after Ambassador Nikki Haley visited the DRC. I have personally experienced this repression, and when I spent over 17 months in jail for exercising my basic constitutional rights. But my story, unfortunately, is not unique. Since September 2016, almost 150 peaceful demonstrators have been killed, while 100 more have been arrested or kidnapped by security forces, and many of them remain in jail. Even while facing repression, Congolese people are repeatedly demonstrated with the same message: the need for a peaceful transition by the end of this year, as stipulated by the Senko agreement. As Vemba said, Kabila must go. This grim situation is tightly linked to the political crisis originated by Kabila's unwillingness to organize election and his attempt to overstay his power in violation of both Constitution and the Senko-sponsored agreement. While poverty and misery are increasing significantly and the country is collapsing, and the economy of the country is collapsing, President Kabila, his family, and his inner circle are known to have built a rich empire through illicit means. According to reports of different organizations, including the Congo Research Group, Enough Projects, Global Witness, the Central Carter, and more recently the Paradise Paper, Joseph Kabila, his family, and both his civilian and military entourage are involved in massive looting of natural resources, corruption, money laundering, potentially implicated terrorist groups. Full play on the part of President Kabila is so blatant that it will be a total waste of time to push yet for another round of negotiation between Kabila and his opposition. The routine of endless and now useless dialogues can no longer be considered as the only path to sustainable solution on the Congo crisis. Further, this government has demonstrated again and again that the electoral calendars are a delayed tactic, an empty promise used to divert attention for the fact that the government has no intention to organize the election that will remove Kabila from power. This delay tactic is the best way to ensure that the election will not be held, and that if and when they are, they will be rushed in the manner that they will neither be free or fair. This is a dangerous path for Congo, and one that I hope the US also want to avoid. The only sustainable solution lies in the immediate resignation of Kabila from the office and his replacement by a respected civilian or team that will organize the election. We, the people of DRC, are not seeking for pity or charity from the US. We are seeking your support in our effort to prevent DRC from falling once again under a dictatorship. We are prepared to oppose by all peaceful means to a president who has violated rule of law as defined by our Constitution. The US should impose direct targeted sanctions against Kabila and his inner circle responsible for human rights violation, money laundering, corruption, and sabotage of the political and electoral process. The US should require the UN and the MONUSCO to stop any kind of support to the Congolese security service, including the Congolese army and the police, who are the main perpetrators of human rights violations. Finally, the US and international partners, particularly African Union, should push Kabila to resign to allow the return to the Constitution and honor the Senko deal and vacate the office by the end of this year. Any contact with Kabila should aim to effecting his resignation so that to allow the return to constitutional order. Mr. Chairman and members of committee, I hope that this committee and the US citizen understand our hunger for peace, for democracy, for liberty, for dignity, and for happiness. I hope that you understand, as did the US founders, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to its ends, as it is the case in DRC, it's not only the most sacred right of the people to abolish it, it's our indispensable duty. Thank you.
Ida Sawyer, directrice Afrique centrale de Human Rights Watch.
As you know, President Kabila's constitutionally mandated two-term limit ended in December 2016. Yet he has used one contrivance after another to delay elections while plunging the country into a web of security, humanitarian, political, and economic crises that have had devastating consequences for the Congolese people and risk destabilizing the volatile sub-region. Yet at the same time, the message that elections only need to be held before the end of 2018 was seen by many Congolese as giving a free pass for Kabila to continue his delaying tactics and stay in power another year, despite his lack of constitutional legitimacy. Congolese officials have blatantly disregarded previous election calendars, while Kabila and his ruling coalition have largely ignored the main terms of the New Year's Eve agreement signed last year. Kabila should be stepping down by the end of this year. By unilaterally extending the time frame, the US runs the risk of losing credibility among key actors in Congo. Yet, if the US is willing and able to use its influence now to ensure fair elections that reflect the will of the Congolese people, it could rebuild any lost legitimacy. Congolese government and security force officers went so far as to implement a deliberate strategy of chaos through orchestrated violence, especially in the southern Kasai region, where up to 5,000 people have been killed since August 2016. Nearly 90 mass graves are scattered across the region. 600 schools have been attacked or destroyed, and 1.4 million people displaced from their homes, including 30,000 who fled to neighboring Angola. In March, 2 UN investigators, Michael J. Sharp, an American from Kansas, and Zaida Catalan, a Swedish and Chilean citizen, were killed while investigating violence in the region. Human Rights Watch investigations suggest government responsibility for the double murder. Kabila's refusal to relinquish the presidency can partly be explained by the considerable fortune he and his family have amassed during his tenure and the millions of dollars in mining revenue that have gone missing. Such corruption has helped leave the government bereft of funds to meet the basic needs of an impoverished population. Hundreds of government employees went on strike in recent months, including hospital workers who hadn't been paid since 2016. This comes amid a national cholera epidemic and impending famine threatening millions of Congolese. Meanwhile, brutal repression has continued unabated, as Fred described. Security forces shot dead more than 170 people during protests in 2015 and 2016. Earlier this year, security forces killed 90 people in a crackdown against a political religious sect. During a protest in Goma just on October 30th, security forces killed 5 people, including an 11-year-old boy. Hundreds of opposition leaders, activists, and journalists have been jailed. In July, unidentified armed men shot and nearly killed a judge who refused to hand down a ruling against an opposition leader. More protests are planned in the coming days and weeks. Citizens' movements, human rights activists, and opposition leaders have denounced the new electoral calendar as a fantasy and shameful maneuver by Kabila to stay in power indefinitely. They've urged the Congolese people to mobilize. They've proposed a citizens' transition without Kabila, led by individuals who could not be candidates, to allow for the organization of credible elections. There is a real risk of increased violence in the coming months. As things now stand, the US, including Congress, cannot afford to take its eyes off Congo. There is too much at stake. Kabila has given no clear signals that he intends to leave power, although repression, violence, and corruption have become so pervasive across institutions and security forces that it is nearly impossible to imagine credible, peaceful elections being organized with Kabila still president. While there is no easy path forward, a short citizens' transition without Kabila is probably the best way to ensure good elections. To get there, the US should work closely with regional and international partners to press Kabila to step down, ensure concerns about Kabila's physical security after he leaves office are addressed, and actively support consultations to determine the management of a post-Kabila transition. We also urge Congress and the US administration to support the following: expand targeted sanctions on Kabila's family members and close financial associates, including those involved in serious corruption, to quash peaceful dissent or otherwise maintain Kabila's rule.